Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. To celebrate this free agency episode, a lot has transpired over the last couple of days. There's been fireworks. There's been shootings in the fan base. I don't mean literally, but just figuratively speaking. But to be able to help us break down what's gone on thus far, you don't see him on camera, but you will. My co-host will be joining me at some point. But the title of tonight's episode is Wheelin and Dealin. And to be able to do that is to help me break this down from 910 The Fan, our good friend, funny man, Mr. Michael P. Phillips. How you doing, brother?
Buddy, like everything was terrible. It was the worst. And then a few days later, everything was great. So I'm glad to be talking to you now. Everything's wonderful.
It's definitely a roller coaster, Michael. Having to hearing everyone even going after AP. Like, even today, I was getting my head bit off because I was like looking at the free agent wide receiver list. Like, look, if you need to bring in a wide receiver, like Dami Brown is the one that makes the most sense. He extends north and south, and he's 26. The rest of the guys are 28 and over. I mean, this is a great fit. What do you think about that re-signing?
Okay, I got two big thoughts on free agency for you before we get started. One is Adam Peters doesn't say anything to anybody. And I think we have to acknowledge that. That's different than the way the rest of the league works. Like everybody else, leaking out their news on Monday, on Tuesday. Hey, look who we got. Get everybody excited. He didn't say a peep. And that's no shade on the reporters who cover the team, who do a great job. I know many of them personally, obviously. But his style is to not share about what he does, why he does it. He operates in silence. And then on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, it was like, oh, joke's on you. I've been working. I got a lot of guys. The number two thing I would say is it's a lot of one-year deals. Yes. And maybe we can dig into that. I'm fascinated. It's an option where if things go really well this year, they do have the cap space to extend everybody and give them long-term deals. But if things don't go well this year, they've got the option to reboot as well, and I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, because we kind of knew coming in with the trading for Marshawn Lattimore, with trading for Laramie Tunsil, that they were going to be kind of forced into this area where they would have to go down this route of the one-year deals and having to replenish every year. Like, we kind of knew that, but when you look at it by itself in a vacuum, you say to yourself, well, that's honestly not the worst idea in the world, given that these guys are on prove-it deals every year, and you're possibly getting the best out of each one every year. I honestly find it fascinating. I don't know about you. I know that long-term it's something that is coveted by players and all that, but from a football GM standpoint, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, this is a fascinating situation where he's got everybody working really hard this year to prove it, but also has the cap space to extend him. Like, if you want to keep everybody this year, if it goes well, they can do that as well. They can keep everybody around long term. I mean, you talk about some of the signings I really like, chasing on the as a DN, right? Like, if he excels this year, you can keep him around long term. They have the cap space to do that. And also, if he's not great this year and he doesn't fit in, you can move on from him. But I think that's most pronounced around Jaden. Jaden Daniels is on the ultimate prove it year. If he proves it this year, if he plays 15 games, balls out, and I think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football, I think the only question is about his durability. If he makes it through the whole season, he's a $70 million man, right? That's what quarterbacks are going to go for next year. And that changes everything, and that changes the way you approach it. If he struggles this year, if he gets injured a few times this year, that changes things as well. And all of a sudden you're rebooting, and you got the draft in DC, and you're looking to, how do you reboot this team? I think he's given himself the flexibility to go either way. But also, as you mentioned, with a team that isn't going to be mad about that, you got a lot of guys chasing, obviously, in the lead there, who know that if they have great years, they will get paid somewhere. Even if it's not here, they're going to get paid somewhere. And so they're going to go all out this year.
Absolutely. And now we are joined by my co-host Goody. We're joined by Michael Phillips. Goody, I don't think you have met Michael Phillips yet, or am I mistaken?
What's up?
How we doing? I think we have met once before.
That's all right. It's a great time to be a Commanders fan because here's my big takeaway on this. Dan Quinn is going to be on the hot seat this year. He has to be, right? Because it was a rough year last year. There are questions about long term. He runs the offensive coordinator, he runs the defensive coordinator. He has enough talent on this roster now that we can fairly evaluate Dan Quinn, the coach. Coming out of next year, it won't be, oh, there were injuries. Oh, he's got a bad team. Oh, they didn't give him the talent he needs. He's got enough talent to make the playoffs. He can be fairly evaluated as a coach this year. And I bet that's a relief for him, honestly.
I got you.
I think that's fair. I like it.
I got another question for you, Michael, if you could think of one, Goody, after mine. But out of all of these newly free agent acquisitions, you can even lump De'Ami Brown into it, who wasn't on the team last year, Michael.
Yeah.
Who do you expect to be the most productive, either by snap count or just by simple snaps?
Well, so many defensive guys, right? And I'll get to that in a second. But Chig Okonkwo, I think people know him as Chig ultimately here.
Yeah.
That is the signing because you think about end of 2024. Zach Ertz was a security blanket, right? Like every time Jaden Daniels was in trouble, every time he's getting blitzed, I know where Zach Ertz is. I can get 5 yards. I can get 6 yards. It's important to have a good tight end in the modern NFL. It's important to have that security blanket guy. He will be that guy, receiving tight end who can be there, but he's also really good with yards after the catch. I'm just gonna plant my flag now. He could be an 800-yard receiving guy this year. He's got that talent. You can line him up outside from time to time if you need to. He's a great addition to this offense, and we'll see what they do at running back. They're still making moves there, running back. That's not settled so far. On defense, probably Leo Chenal. Like I'm reading the tea leaves here. I don't know. I don't know that Bobby Wagner is coming back because Dan Quinn loves him and Bobby Wagner loves DQ, but nothing's happened yet. I think he wants to be on a team that will give him 100% of the snaps at the middle linebacker with the green dot. I don't think this team's going to be that team. I think they want to go younger and faster. Packer's going to be a critical position this year.
It is fascinating to hear that because we've been speculating that we would love to bring back Bobby, but it'd be in a limited basis, and I know that he's like inches away from the tackle record. So I'd be wondering if the motivation is based on the snap count or the ability to have playing time. To your point, Michael, but Goody, do you have a question?
Yeah. So based on last year's, the way that the season kind of turned out, how many players got injured, and the success we just didn't have. But coming into this offseason, we had a lot of free agents. We had a lot of holes in the roster. So in terms of the way Adam Peters attacked his free agency, in terms of getting players to not only fill those needed positions, but also to add depth at the same time in needed positions, to kind of prevent the situation that we got into last year. How do you feel like he was able to do that? Kind of playing chess and filling those holes, getting people on the roster, and then also building depth at it so quickly.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, which is, all right, the draft's right around the corner. You got the number 7 pick. I don't know that there's a position where you say they have to take this position, right? They're forced into going with this need. It doesn't matter anything else. They can take the guy who they feel is the best player at 7. That's a luxury. Not every team gets to do that. They've got the quarterback. That's obviously the biggest piece. But now they've filled out the pass rush. They've filled out, a lot of these positions behind it. And one of the things I kept hearing, when I was talking to people who are in the know in the NFL, they say, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is. It doesn't matter how good your linebackers are. If you can't get to the quarterback and make him throw the ball, and not like in a Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson way. Those guys are great to have, obviously, but just in a basic way, if the quarterback can have 5 seconds in the pocket, it doesn't matter if you've got the best corners in the world. You can't cover an NFL receiver for 5 seconds. You can't do it. They've got a good enough pass rush now that even if they don't get a pass rusher at 7, which I do think they still could, I'm sure we can go into that. But even if they don't get a pass rusher at 7, they can put enough heat on the quarterback that everybody else can do their jobs. I think that's really important.
I'm so happy you said that and that people in the know of the NFL agree with me, Michael, in the sense of rushing the quarterback. And I'm sure Durante Jones agrees as well. Pressure is a huge thing for him. But I want to talk about on the other side of the football, I want to talk about Billy the Kid. Bill himself, they brought in Rashad White, a 1 year deal for $2 million. That C-Rod got signed to the Jags for 12 mil,
Yeah.
which a lot of look, man, I know that he's going to have a great year with Liam Cohen, who is his OC in Kentucky. But how do you think this team views Bill right now? Because a lot of this fan base, I've been making jokes that I'm now the leader of the Jeremiah Love train at 7, just to, flip flop and badminton people. But how do you think this team views Bill? Do you think that it is something along the lines of they want to go with that 1-2 punch? They believe the offensive line first is more important, or do you think that they're looking at it to say we are kind of on the edge of saying Bill is probably better as a RB2?
Yeah, I think you look at this as, you're going to a Ben Johnson style offense. He borrows a lot of stuff from Kyle Shanahan, the zone run.
Yeah,
Alfred Morris was a beast in that scheme, right?
yeah.
And Alfred Morris wasn't a dude. He wasn't a $10 million guy. And we kind of never heard from him again after he left Washington, left the Shanahan scheme, had a couple of years in Dallas, which is no shade against him. I love him. But yes, that scheme says invest in the O-line first, invest in creating holes, and then find a running back who's got power, who's got speed, who can do those things you want him to do. So Laramie Tunsil was a key to this whole thing. They do love him, and I'm glad they locked him up. And he resets the market. That's all right. Somebody else will reset the market tomorrow. That's how it works in the NFL. But you create these holes, and then you just need a running back who can take advantage of it. I still think they believe in Bill. And I don't think the Rashad White signing changes that. If they bring in Love, obviously he's the guy at that point. But I do think that if they don't draft at 7 a running back, I think they're good with Bill being the lead running back, with Rashad White working in that pass catching role, out of the backfield. And I think they believe in him, and I believe in his skill set because he's got the elusiveness. He's got those skills. So many people raved over him in the preseason, but he's backed it up in the regular season too. He's had some games where you've seen he can do it against NFL competition.
Absolutely. We saw that last year in those outside runs. You got to hold on to the football, which I'm sure that's what they're kind of hesitant about at times,
Yep.
but it doesn't take away from his home run speed. And Adam Peters himself said they want to get younger, faster, and more explosive. And Bill fits the bill, so to speak, if you
There
were
you
to
go.
say that. Yeah, my man. I wanted to ask you about the draft, right? Because are there implications for the draft? I know you kind of said they can go in a variety of ways, but right now, how are you feeling about the draft, Michael? Obviously, we don't know how it's going to roll out. Come April for those first 6 picks, it could go crazy. But just common sense, what everyone's kind of implicating and saying, what do you feel like the best bet for Washington is at 7 right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you who I'm going to pick here in a second. But the thing I love is at 7, they're going, excuse me, they're going to have a good player on the board for them. I love talking draft. They're going to have a good player for them on the board at 7, right?
Right.
There's enough good players. You take out Mendoza, right? And if somebody goes offense, somebody goes offense. They'll have a good player available for them. It may not be the guy they exactly want. Like I'm sure AP's fallen in love with somebody. That guy may not be on the board, but whoever they take's going to be a game changer. I don't think they trade out of this pick for that reason. I
Okay.
think there will be a guy on the board who's a game changer, who they love, who's the kind of guy who can start for your team for a decade. Sonny Styles is my name, right? Like
Okay.
the linebacker is the position where you need to get set for the next decade. He's got all the measurables. We know that Peters loves freaky athletic dudes. He is a freaky athletic dude. I'm watching Caleb Downs too. I got my eye on all the Buckeyes. I should have been watching more Ohio State football this year. But I think that they're going defense. I think they're going with a guy who some of these 1-year guys can build into, can feed into, and make him a real star on this defense.
Now, pertaining to wide receiver, I know that you said that you've talked to people around the league. Have you asked about the Brandon Iayuk situation and how it's going to play out? It seems like at this point, the 49ers are holding him hostage, and for good reason. There's no reason for them to let him go right now to try to get something out of it, right? But how do you think it plays out? And in foregone conclusion, he's probably coming here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I think this is really one of the fascinating stories of the offseason. I really do, because he's holding 14 million against the 49ers cap. So they have 14 million dollars they can't spend as long as he's on the roster. But if they're not pushing against the cap, there's no harm, right? The next time that he does anything to impact their cap is cut day at the end of the last preseason game. There's no roster bonuses. There's no training camp bonuses. So if they want to make his life difficult, they can. I think Kyle Shanahan took this one personally. Yeah. I think he was really bothered by Iayuk leaving. And if he can leave a $14 million hole on the salary cap, I know he doesn't love doing that. I think he will hold him until training camp. And I think from the Adam Peters perspective, I don't think you want to give up a draft pick for this guy, even a 6th or a 7th. I don't think you want to part with the draft pick for him. You want to wait this out. But we saw with Terry McLaurin, if your guy doesn't participate in training camp, it creates issues in the regular season. So I could see June being a really big month in the Brandon Iayuk situation. Will they blink first? Will Washington blink first? Will Brandon Iayuk blink first? Because I do think the day he reports to 49ers camp, they're like, oh, okay, you're here. Get out of here. But if he's going to do the whole I'm not showing up thing, I could see them playing hardball with him. I could see this becoming a situation.
Okay. Well, it clears it up a little bit because it definitely does make sense. Look, petty meets petty, man. And as much as we would like to say to be a better man than the other, but obviously NFL teams have other views on things, of course. And like you said, it does feel personal to an extent. The next one I want to ask you about, Washington signed Nick Cross, and this was a big move coming back to Maryland, former Terp himself. Yep. What do you think? Because Durante Jones talked about in his presser, Michael, he specifically talked about positional versatility, right? Guys being able to move in multiple spots. Quan, going back to Illinois, he played slot, he played safety. He was actually better in the pros at free safety than he was at strong early on, and Ron and company moved him there. What do you think happens with Quan at this point?
Yeah, I don't think there's any harm in keeping him on the roster. I think he's played well at times, but I think you owe it to yourself to say, can we do better? Is there a next level out there, right? And I don't know that they're done yet. We talk about the draft, and obviously there's a lot of options in the draft, including Caleb Downs, who's just a really intriguing prospect. How do you slot him in? How does he move around the secondary? There's still work to be done here. Adam Peters said something at his January press conference, which is, I wish the draft was before free agency. And I feel that, right? Like if we knew who the number 7 pick was, we could project out a lot of these things a lot better, but we don't know who the number 7 pick is. And as a result of that, we're kind of sitting in limbo on a lot of these guys. Nick Cross, Quan Martin. We're sitting in limbo on what does that secondary look like? How do you align everybody? Obviously, we know Cross is going to play. They like him. That's why they brought him in. We know they like Quan Martin. Do they like him enough to make him a regular guy? Is he a depth piece? Big picture, right? Kyle, they're chasing the Eagles, and the Eagles have outstanding backups at every position. They do. They've built that over time, and as much as I hate the Eagles, they've done a great job going 1 to 53 on that roster. So if the end game here is Quan Martin is your first guy off the bench, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's exactly what I was getting at. I love it. I like the way that this team is being built right now.
My favorite safety out of the class last year, Michael, was Andrew Makuba. And, of course, he went to Philly. They let Reed Blankenship walk. And I think a lot of that has to do with Andrew Makuba, so expect to hear his name a lot this year. He ended the season injured, unfortunately, but that's a name to watch. I don't want to talk about them enough, but they have a crap load of draft picks, and that's one of the reasons why Howie is so good. They have comp picks out the wazoo, but not to beat a dead horse in or anything like that. But Washington also signed Chris Paul moments ago to a 1-year deal, and we kind of talked about the 1-year deal. But the center position, Nick Allegretti was very vocal in saying that he's very comfortable with playing center. He likes doing it. It's where he feels he's at his best. Do you think Nick Allegretti week 1 is going to be the starter for Washington?
Well, certainly right now he's going to be. We'll see who they pick up in the draft and free agency. You got to have depth on that offensive line. And look, no hard feelings with Chris Paul. He thought his market was going to be a lot higher than it was. He went out there. He didn't get signed on day 1 of free agency, and you're like, okay. He didn't get signed on day 2 of free agency, and then the league year starts on Wednesday, and you're like, where's Chris Paul going? Oh, nowhere. Oh, maybe the market didn't materialize the way he thought it would. No hard feelings. Come back. Like, if the market for him is a reasonable salary, do it in Washington. Do it where you feel comfortable. Everybody deserves the chance to chase the bag. Not everybody gets the bag, though. That's the way the NFL works. And I welcome him back with open arms. And I know that Nick Allegretti's here. I do wonder. I think they thought they were going to get Lindenbaum. I really do. How much does that change things with Biotish? Do they wish they had kept him? But Allegretti is a great option at center, and if you can keep him healthy and keep him productive, if you're going to play Jaden under center more, you're going to lean on that center to help call some things off defensively for Jaden when he can't see the full defense like he can in shotgun. So that becomes a really important position this year.
Yep, they sealed up Chris Paul. They got back Trent Scott, so backup swing tackle there, Andrew Wiley, Allegretti, Laramie Tunsil, of course. So you could say, and based on what they did in free agency, is they really beefed up the trenches. And to wrap this up, only a couple more, Michael, but they brought back Tim Settle, which I know that you are very familiar with Tim Settle. I love Tim Settle, and what this hints at is that they are going to be going towards the 3-4 defense. Yep. How excited are you for that? And given with that in mind, the pass rush, I know you talked about it before, but are you comfortable with what they've added so far to the point where if they were to go to offense in the first round, like wide receiver, running back, whatever have you, that they have enough in the chamber to be able to be effective?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, right? They maybe have a little more quantity than quality right now at the pass rusher position, but I love keeping Deron Payne. I do. And if you need to trade him to get somebody good, you got to do it eventually, sure. But I love keeping him bottling up the middle of the offensive line. And I think he's underrated as a run stopper, and he'll get a chance to really be that this year. But they've got a lot of guys on the outside. You're counting on some of them panning out. Tim Settle, by the way, joins my favorite trivia question. He is now a Redskin, a football teamer, and a Commander. He never played for the Commanders.
Of course, I didn't even think about that, Michael. And
he's one of like maybe 6. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Really quick. So I don't know. It may seem like an obvious thing, but in terms of a GM, building a team, picking up players, whether through the draft or free agency, how much of that is typically a collaboration with the coaching staff and what they prefer, or is it more often just the GM kind of going his route and having the coaches just make it work? I just feel like this offseason, with everything being kind of on the line, getting 2 new guys in here, I feel like there's such a collaboration. So every piece that was acquired, it almost feels like it was handpicked by that specific coordinator. And that just gets me excited, feeling like they have confidence in having, being able to work with those pieces.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal question because we're still sorting that out, right? Like we're still trying to figure out who's in charge. And now we know Adam Peters is in charge here. He runs the show. He's calling the schemes. David Blau is going to run a Ben Johnson style offense. You've heard that a few times, right? Yeah. So, everybody's on the same page. That's the style of guy they want. So Adam Peters knows that's the kind of style to get. He's running those guys by David Blau. David Blau saying, yeah, that's the kind of guy I want. I'm good. In a productive organization, you have that kind of everybody's lined up. Everybody knows what the style is going to be. Everybody knows what kind of player you're chasing. You move from there. What does that actually mean in practice? We may have to wait for week 1 to find out. I think back to the RG3 opening year, but that guy didn't run any read option the entire training camp, the entire preseason, and then week 1, it's like, oh yeah, here's what the offense looks like. Yeah. David Blau is a mystery box right now. It's let's make a deal. We took door number 2. It's not going to open until week 1, and that's an advantage. He doesn't have to show what he's all about. I do think it will look like Ben Johnson's offense because I think they wanted Ben Johnson as their coach, but I think they trust David Blau, and I think that those 2 guys are working together to create a team and a roster and players that can deliver that on the field ultimately.
And what a chess piece mind F that would be to force everybody to try to game plan for Washington week 1, and you come to find out like you were looking at the wrong film.
Yeah.
Just specifically looking at Ben Johnson based on what Chig said, of course. But my last question for you, Michael, before I let you get out of here. If you were to say, looking at this football team, last year Josh Connerly kind of surprised people. I know it surprised me. Like I wanted edge. I've always gone. I'm a defensive minded person ultimately, but this year, who could be the surprise pick in the first round? What position would you say would have that same kind of reaction as Connerly?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, because last year was all about taking care of Jaden Daniels, right?
Right.
He's the future. Let's build let's build a line around him. Let's make sure we got the left tackle. Let's make sure we got the left tackle of the future. Let's make sure we've got weapons for him. That's why you brought in Debo. I don't think it would surprise anybody if they drafted Carnell Tate. I don't. I mean, he is a name on the board that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think it takes care of your star quarterback. And I don't think you can do too much to take care of your star quarterback. He's the most important guy in the organization. If he has a great season, you want to sign him to a 7-year deal, throw a big bang at him this offseason. If he's got something that makes him feel more comfortable, whether it's another receiver, whether it's, another offensive lineman, whatever it might be, I don't think it's ridiculous to do that, and some people say, oh, you're catering to the player too much. Oh, this is the NBA and this is like LeBron picking who's on his team. Sure, maybe a little bit, but also there's like 4 of these dudes in the entire world, and we've got one of them. I'm okay with giving him what he wants.
That's such a great way to put it, Michael. Absolutely killed it. Before you get out of here, Michael, would you like to plug your social media handle?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still on Twitter. I'm like the last guy on Twitter, but it's Michael P in RVA. We do a radio show. It's on 910 The Fan. It's 10 to noon. We make it a podcast. It's called MP on the Mic. We have fun. It's just me yapping like this for a couple hours. So follow, do all the things. Thank you for having me. I always love talking football.
Of course. Michael, I know we've been trying for a while, so I really appreciate you. I know you had a long day of being able to stick around and talk with us a little bit, man. It means a lot. I appreciate you.
Dude, I love you guys. I love the fan base here. I hope we get good things this year. I was at the VCU basketball game today. We're the home of VCU basketball in Richmond. They won. I feel like the Commanders won this week. It's not a long day when you're winning. Winning's good. We love winning.
My man. All right, Michael. Have a good night and get some rest, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Michael Phillips. Always appreciate him, the funny man himself. He brought down some fantastic info. But Goody, I got to get your reaction thus far to free agency. Since the last time that we spoke, I think the last signing when we had the podcast on Tuesday was Leo Chanel, and a lot of things have transpired since then. How are you feeling right now? I kind of have a good feel. I kind of know how you're going to go with this, but overall, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling like we've been served. It feels like a breath of fresh air. And honestly, for the people that were panicking and the sky was falling, I'm happy that a lot of you have apologized, on your own. You were mature about it and you faced the music, and I commend you for that. But yes, this free agency has been a blast. Adam Peters has really just kind of sat back and showed you why he's in the position he's in now. A lot of the people that were available that weren't necessarily being spoken about in the media and all that, he was doing his job. Everybody on that team was really working hard. We did get a lot of short deals with a mix of some long deals, so it was a good balance there. Obviously, that gives you still flexibility, but it shores up some pieces that you definitely want in your building. So I like the way that was handled. But yeah, it was all fireworks. It's like any fireworks show you go to. It starts off with a couple flares here and there. By the time the show's over and the lights come back on, there was a finale. So he did his thing.
And as Hall as you guys were anointing Hall as the voice of reason, he was complaining about the lack of offensive weapons, and then immediately he's so happy about Chig. Chig was somebody he really wanted, And I have to give credit to my boy Logan Paulson. He knows his stuff, man. Chig was one of his favorites. And when I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, he said that Adam Peters was going to make sure that he built this team enough to where when you get to the draft, you're not having to go in any sort of direction. You can go with best player available. So hat tip to my boy. Smart as heck, as always, caveman himself, but he really hit the nail on the head. Utah on Twitter says, we are way better now than we were a week ago. That's a success. I would agree with you, Utah. Now, you brought something up because about the people panicking and flipping out, right?
Yep.
If you've ever played sports, if you've ever been in any sort of crazy, chaotic situation, like for example, whenever you see those terrible videos online, either a fight breaking out or something of the sort, you always hear somebody screaming, right? Somebody screaming in the background. There's something going wrong. Let's just say you're on a ship, right? You're on a ship. There's a hole in the ship and there's a bunch of people on it, and you just have people screaming, there's a hole in this ship, why are we gonna, like, just screaming like that. Does that help? Does that help? Because there's people that are trying to clog the hole in the ship, and you're screaming in their ear that there's a hole in the ship. We all can see that there's a hole in the ship. That's not fixing anything. And particularly on the football field, I said this to my kids that I was coaching this year for football. I was like, the worst, when you have an opponent that is yelling at each other, that's when you know you've won. It's going to be easy on out from there. Because what that says is that's a lack of confidence that you're going to get things going. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is the lack of confidence for things to get fixed. And that's why you're panicking and freaking out. It doesn't help anything. And I know that people are saying, well, I'm a fan, I can do whatever I want. I get it, dude. You can do whatever you want. But in the same breath, so can other people to say, stop panicking, stop flipping out. Just calm down. Just trust what's going to pop off. And
yeah,
it's
pretty crazy how some people really go to the limits so early out the gate. But hey, we expect it at this point, so.
Which is hysterical, right? Because, I say all this and I have people yelling at me that, Adam Peters doesn't know what he's doing. He's not signing the guys. We're not building this team the right way. And then the next day when they sign Clavon Chason, I just put up an emoji like, and I get yelled at. And this dude's this dude tells me, he's like, I'm putting you on the list. You can't celebrate if we were to win playoff games this year. I'm putting you on the list because I didn't like one signing. I was like, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I don't like the signing, dude. My goodness.
Crazy world.
I'm telling people to stay off the ledge. Don't jump. This isn't oh my gosh. What's the place in Japan? Oh my gosh. But regardless, stop, just get off the ledge, right? And it's just so funny how this fan base works. I just get yelled at for everything, ultimately at the end of the day. But I want to get into some fan questions because obviously we have some pertaining to free agency. This first one was submitted on Twitter by our guy, Tony Franchise. Out of the available free agents, who would you like the team to add? I would have, he asked this 12 hours ago. Okay. I would have told you then Dyami Brown. I thought that made the most sense. I was on Twitter because Brandon put out a post saying, out of all the free agent wide receivers here, who would you rather go with? And I was saying Dyami Brown. He's 26 years old. He's explosive. He's fast. He has familiarity with this team. It makes the most sense. And he's going to be cheap based on how he played out last year. That's a shoe-in fit for me personally. And, I had people bite my head off on Twitter, of course. But I really felt strongly that was a really good thing because what Adam Peters said is we got to get younger, faster, stronger. What did we do? Go out and get somebody who's young, fast, and explosive. Dyami Brown. Makes the most sense. Boom, boom, boom. And now everyone's like, oh, well, it's still a bad sign. He didn't do much last year. I understand he didn't do much last year. That's why he's cheap. That's why it makes sense because we know what Jaden can do with him. And when you're talking about a depth piece, you'd rather have explosion and speed in a depth piece. So, are you arguing that you'd rather them not sign Dyami Brown? Is there more explosive people out there right now that you'd rather have? It blows my mind sometimes, Goody. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good, man. So, yeah, if there is a free agent that's out there right now that I would want to bring in, I think it would be between two players. I think I would have to go with Debo or Bobby Wagner. Necessarily don't have to go out and continue, plucking whatever's out in the market. Those are two things that we're pretty sure of. And it would, again, shore up some positions and just make this team better. So I would say either Debo or Bobby Wagner.
I would it's not bad. I would personally say right now probably just Brandon Ayuk. At this point, corner is another way that you can look at it. Jonathan Joseph signed with another team, so cornerback depth is something that's going to be needed. Wouldn't mind adding to that room as well, but they've done a good job of laying the foundation everywhere so that they can be water. They can go in any direction. I still think at 7 they can go defense, especially at linebacker core. I think Arvil Reese is a perfect fit for what Durante Jones likes to do. You can line him up anywhere from a blitzing standpoint, over the center, from the guards, the tackles to out wide. I think that Arvil Reese makes a lot of sense. And if you're talking about making this defense, making sure they can get off the field, adding somebody like Arvil Reese in a rotation that they've already added just makes this defense that much better, which bleeds into the secondary and makes their job easier, because Durante Jones believes in bringing pressure. So I think that they've done a good job of building it thus far. I'm more so am apt to the draft, and so free agency is not something I really covet or look into. And looking at pro players, I more so lean on other people for that. But the draft is where I really go into looking, and so that's why I'm not always the best to answer these, Tony. Now, this next question from John Taman, our guy from the from the Bleeding Burgundy podcast, said wide receiver seems to be the last glaring need left. Love to hear y'all discuss the room. I think other than a need for a 2, the room isn't looking bad. Do you think we draft a wide receiver high, or do you think we sign a lower end free agent and elevate one of our in-house guys to 2?
Yeah, so I'm assuming this question may have came in before we got 2 more free agent wide receivers, but
That was 12 hours ago, yes.
yeah, but I love the room. So it's exciting for me. I'm very optimistic about it. Even without, like he said, having that quote unquote number 2, yet on the team, or maybe that player is already on this team. But the most exciting part to me is that we added a lot of depth, to this room. We re-signed some people that we got a good look at last year. And again, David Blau is sitting in, he knows exactly what he has, there. So if he in his mind can see something, whereas he's like, yeah, I can make this thing go. I'm thrilled. Obviously, we could still add talent in the draft, and I think they will. I think they will add wide receiver. I don't think it will be at that 7th pick. That's just me personally. I don't think the wide receiver will be drafted there. If so, I think there will be a trade back situation. But yeah, I think they're still going to add a young wide receiver, whether early in the draft. But the room right now, I'm in love with it. You got Luke McCaffrey, got Jalen Lane coming back, Traylon Burks. Now we got Diami back in the house. Like this room could cook up a little bit. So I'm very excited where it's at right now.
Yeah, right now the wide receiver room is a frat party after a football game, after a winning football game. It is absolutely packed, and that is a good thing to have. Does that mean that they're out of the running for a wide receiver in the draft? Absolutely not. I think this is what the beauty of what Adam Peters is essentially doing, where iron sharpens iron. And if you do go down the route of a wide receiver at 7 in the draft, you are then forcing the competition to say, if you want to be here, you got to work for it. And I know that people have draft capital attributed to them, but there's others that don't. And you got to work hard to be able to do that and showcase yourself. And getting somebody like Van Jefferson and Diami Brown to add to the room just makes everyone better. And I think that's the best case scenario for Washington at this moment. Everybody and their mother, including Hall, were complaining they needed offensive weapons. They've done a good job of adding that, and to the point where you feel comfortable overall everywhere. And I myself included in that you have depth pieces in more quantity than quality, you could essentially say. But I truly believe that for a young quarterback to be successful in this league, they need a good defense and a strong running game. And they've built up the offensive line. They re-signed Chris Paul. They got Laramie Tunsil on his deal. They brought back Trent Scott, Nick Allegretti, Andrew Wiley. So they have really made sure that they're building up the trenches, and that is what's really going to translate and help Jaden Daniels this season to be able to move. I don't think all that much stock goes into the wide receivers. Like this guy, this Patriots fan said, the Commanders tried for Romeo Dobbs and Alec Pierce and ended up with Diami Brown and Van Jefferson. And my quote tweet back to him was, well, when you have a top tier quarterback, you don't need to overpay for wide receivers. And that's how I honestly feel about the quarterback position is he's the feeder. You don't need great eaters. You need a great feeder in order for everything to work well, and that's what we do have. And so I'm confident, very confident what we have, just purely because of who's playing quarterback for us. I've always felt that way, and I feel strongly about that right now. Now, the next question we have is from the Colonel. He had a couple. He said, regarding biggest needs, Goody, I think AP knocked it out of the ballpark this free agency, and I'm sure he's not finished. That said, does our success in free agency make it more likely for us to trade back given a willing partner? Or do you think we'll go for a blue chip player like Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate, or most recently rumored Mekhi Lemon?
So the possibility of trading back just got a whole lot bigger in my eyes. Now it depends how far, of course, right? We don't necessarily want to get too far out of where that top talent is, but definitely the idea of trading back has grown, considering the moves that have been made these past few days, this week. But at the same time, like you hear a lot of these people say, there's really like blue chip talent at the top of this draft, whereas you don't necessarily want to put yourself in a position where you're missing out on that. So I could very much see us, staying put at 7 at the same time, and taking whoever falls to us that is high on their board. And you can't go wrong either way. I feel like you're doing good for this franchise by either moving back and acquiring more assets or staying put and adding a talent that you plan to have on this roster for the next 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to say that, like Phillips had talked about, the quantity, not quality, right? He really built the foundation overall. So was Washington really in a position to bypass that blue chip player in order to get more draft capital? And I don't necessarily believe that. I think that you're in a prime spot right now, and I've said this many times, Goody, your ears are probably bleeding at this point. But the more offensive guys that are taken in the top 6, top 7, better off for Washington at 7. It's going to be a hard decision to make, but the more offensive guys that are taken, some very good options are going to be there for you at 7, and vice versa.
I'll say this. You bring this up a lot. It's a good point, and it pertains to this, is you don't want to be in a position to draft this high very often in the future, right? So the fact that we're up here, might as well just get it in, take the punches right here, because you don't want to be back up this high. So you want to go get that talent when you can. So I do think that's huge.
Right. And in this free agency, Adam Peters, what you do give him a lot of credit for is he's added the quantity, right? So you have had added a bunch of the depth and just good concrete foundation for the rest of the football team. Well, now you need the aesthetic. Now you need the shingles. Now you need the good colored paint. And I think that's where you get the great fluorescent, great glowing colors at 7. I don't think you bypass it. I think you stick there and you add the quality player there because you've already built the foundation. I don't need to trade back and get more quantity. We need quality at this point just to add it on top. And the beauty of adding the quantity and the foundation is that you are not forced to put that quality player you take at 7 to immediately put him in the fold to say you got to go out and produce right away. You can mix him in. You can make sure that he's massaged in and all the world is not put on his shoulders. This is a great environment to be put in for a young quality player to really groom and grow in. And you're putting it at the behest of the coordinator to say, if you feel strongly enough that he deserves more, you can give him more, and it's not that much of a detriment to the rest of the team. It's going to make everybody better. So for me personally, Colonel, I'm going quality here. I'm staying with the blue chip because my personal feeling is we shouldn't get back to picking in the top 10. Not with who we have at quarterback, not with who we have making decisions in the front office. We should be always picking in the bottom half of the first round, in my personal opinion. Now, the next question from the Colonel. Just how good is our new tight end, Chig Okonkwo? Help me out by filling in the blanks. We haven't had a tight end this good since blank blank. I only go back as far as Chris Cooley and Jordan Reed since you guys are youngsters. You've probably never heard of Clint Didier or Don Warren. I've
No, I
heard of
definitely.
I've heard of Don Warren. My uncle Gene talks about Don Warren constantly. He's like, "Oh, yo, what do you know about Don Warren?" I'm like, dude, come on, dude.
Yeah, no, those two I don't. But I'll have to do some digging up to catch up on that. But yeah, I feel like I forgot who I was listening to, but the people that we addressed and attacked this off season are players that were ascending where they were, but were not being utilized to their max. So it feels like we have a collection of guys like that, and Okonkwo is definitely one of those guys who was ascending but was not able to continue further due to his situation. But him being able to come into this team and this organization, this offense with JD and Blau, it feels like he's going to have that opportunity to exceed and boom and reach his full potential here. So it's very exciting. In terms of the actual player, I haven't really seen enough of him myself. But over the past few days, looking at it, it just seems like there's a weapon that's ready to be utilized. And it's a threat, more or less a threat for other teams. When you put this Okonkwo in a position of basically having a scheme built around him, almost in essence, or a portion of the scheme built around him, that's lethal. And I think what he can bring to this team is going to be eye-opening. And I'm excited to see it. Very excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how the fit works because if we're talking about a Ben Johnson type of offense, because Chicken Conquo, you could say Colonel is very similar to like an F type tight end, Jordan Reed type, where you're going to use him out wide. You could put him in the slot if need be. Not the greatest blocker ever, but he'll get in the way. He's a better blocker than Zach Ertz. I think we can all agree on that. Now, no disrespect to Zach, but he was just literally he was uninterested in blocking. So with Chig, his average per catch before he started going upfield, I think was one of the lowest. I think it was like 4 yards was his average. So he's getting a lot of shallow yards, but his yards after the catch are monumental. He really does you do well with the ball in his hands, breaking tackles and getting downfield with his speed. So you're more looking as that F type tight end. But that's my big question is if you're going towards that Ben Johnson type of offense, is Chig going to be having his hand in the dirt a lot? Because you're talking about that 31-21 personnel where three tight ends, two tight ends on the field next to the linemen. Are you going to be able to leak that out a lot? Are you requesting for him to be blocking a lot from that standpoint? So it's very fascinating to see how it's going to be utilized, how it's going to be implemented with Chig. Is he the best tight end since? I'm not going to say anything about that. We got to see how it works, first and foremost. Look, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're misused, things can delay you and disrupt you in your progress. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be the best since Jordan Reed, but it does add that weapon for Jaden, especially shallow in that screen type leaking game where he can really pay dividends, and especially in the red zone. I think that's a big body dude that's going to pay dividends for us.
He seems to fit Cliff Kingsbury's style offense a little bit better, and David Blau will be, mixing that up, I'm sure. So, it's going to be exciting to see how that shakes out.
Look, Arch, I know I said it wrong, okay? That's how I'm dating myself, okay? Even though I am an old head, so to speak. Now, the next question from the Colonel. What does the signing of Chicken Conquo mean for Ben Sinnott, Goody? I've heard he'll possibly become like Kyle Juszczyk as a fullback tight end hybrid position.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does too much. I think it kind of puts him right back to where he was, right behind Zach Ertz. There's going to be a little bit more competition there because Zach Ertz's role was obviously, carved out for him. But I don't think it does much to Ben. If anything, it lights a little fire under him. He feels like, hey, they had to bring this guy in, pay him this money. They don't think I'm that guy that can do that. So maybe it's just going to spark a little fire. But having those two guys out there, Ben Simmons been on this team, will be on this team for 3 seasons. So he's definitely getting his tread. So he could definitely emerge as well. There may be a ton of focus on Okonkwo, and Ben Simmons could have a sneaky, really good season. But I just again, with what we experienced last year as a franchise and as a team, and all those injuries, and not having the amount of people to fill out those positions, leading to a lot of losses in a terrible season. Having the depth here is important to me, and I feel like we're just doing that as well. So, Ben Sinnott, step it up. New sheriff's in town, and that's not something that he's not new to by playing behind Zach Ertz. So
Yeah, I've said this for a while. I'm tied to the hip with Ben Sinnott. I ranked him as the number 2 tight end in that draft class ahead of Jatavian Sanders. And I still feel strongly about Ben Sinnott. I said it in that draft before he was drafted. He's at his best blocking with momentum. So when he's moving as an inline blocker, he has gotten better. That wasn't his strength coming out. So this year, it would hint at him actually being used more so like a Kyle Juszczyk. I 100% agree with you. I understand that viewpoint of him, but I think it also allows him to work underneath. And so if there's any time for Ben Sinnott to really flourish as a passing weapon, it's this year. So he can work underneath. So everyone's looking at Chicken Conquo. Everyone's looking at Terry McLaurin or the other wide receivers. He is going to be able to work and operate underneath, being able to hit those seams because everyone else is paying attention to other things. And so I think this is the year for Ben Sinnott to actually be utilized and to be showcasing his talents. I did think that he was put by the wayside with Zach Ertz. I think that's one of the reasons why Cliff isn't here at this moment. So I'll ultimately say that I think this is the year that Ben Sinnott could pop off in a similar type of thing like Dami Brown did. Maybe not heavily utilized during the season, but in the playoffs, somebody that could pop off for you, given that he's going to be able to operate underneath. Nobody's really looking at him, and it's not somebody you are relying on. So this is the year for Ben Sinnott to really showcase himself. And I'll also say this. I would love to see Trent Scott utilized as a fullback on goal line. We've seen the athleticism, him be able to catch those touchdowns. On the goal line, add that beefy dude in front of Bill or Rashad White in the goal line. I think you're going to be moving bodies out of the way. I would love to see Trent Scott used as a fullback on the goal line, if not John Bates, which is by itself just another lineman on the football field. Now, the next question that we have, this one was submitted in the Discord. We had a couple submitted. This one from Arch. What is the most underrated signing? Kyle can't say settle.
the most underrated signing. I'm gonna go with. See, it's almost like this would have been, but I feel like people are really fired up about him. But I want to say Leo Chanel, but I feel like it's not even underrated at this point. I feel like a lot of people are really fired up and excited for what he could do. But for me, when that happened, initially the first thing that came to my mind was Frankie Louvu. Frankie Louvu, when we brought him in, that first season, there's like somebody knew what he could do, and he was able to show that, obviously, and he became a fan favorite here quickly. But I feel like this is another one of those players that once they're suited up and on the field making plays, he's going to become one of those people that the fan base falls in love with. So I'll say Leo Chanel.
It's messed up. It really is. He said I can't say settle. Obviously, it's a very easy one. But I do think Nick Cross is going under the wayside, and that's stabilizing the back end with how many questions people had about Quan Martin. Nick Cross is going to be very good at being able to operate in the middle of the field, a good run defender. Of course, I racked up a bunch of tackles for the Colts. But the one that I'll say that I really enjoy and I think it's a perfect fit is Rashad White. And I'm not going to say it's really underrated because he is Jaden's boy, but he's a phenomenal pass blocker. Very, very much motivated to pop somebody's head off. Very similar to Clinton Portis, Javonte Williams, Travion Henderson. That type of pass blocker you're getting where he's going to punch somebody in the mouth if they're coming up the middle and be able to help out his quarterback in protecting them on top of what he can do as a pass catcher and as a run runner. But I think that it's a great compliment to Bill because Bill needed to get better at blocking as a passer and also catching out of the backfield. That's what Rashad White really specializes in. And so I think that's a really good compliment. It's going underrated because Rashad White is going to be very valuable during the season in those crucial situations where you need to get that first down. You're in a passing down situation. They know that you are. Bring in Rachaad White. They're going to bring in extra pressure. Like Rachaad White would have been perfect for us versus Minnesota when they were really screwing with everybody, being able to help out Jaden and the rest of the team, being able to stop those blitzers from happening. Now, the next question from Arch is, what is your depth chart at the defensive end position?
Defensive end position. You have Owe. I want to say, I really want to say Armstrong. I just don't know what that timeline's looking like. But I feel like he would be your second in line. I feel like he would be that second edge out there starting. And then you have Caleb on Chason, my third. And let me just see what this list is looking like. I don't even know. We have so many now. So I'm gonna go Owe, Armstrong, Chason, um, Drake Jackson. I think they still really have a lot of confidence in Baptiste as well. I'm gonna put him there. And what was the new one from the Chiefs?
Charles Omenihu.
Emmanuel. Yes, I'm gonna put him. Oh, so there's Dietrich Wise I'm missing too. So it's tough. So I'm gonna go Owe, Armstrong. Wow, I'm drawing a blank here.
You're good. You're good.
Owe, Armstrong, Chason, Dietrich Wise, and then the rest is gonna have to scrap it out there. If I had a list in front of me, I would probably name that. But
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Armstrong, Owe, Dietrich Wise, I would probably put at 1C. Then Drake Jackson. Then I'd go with Charles Omenihu, and then I'd go with Clavon Chason, and then Javonte John Baptiste, well, with Drake Jackson sprinkled in there. They absolutely added a lot in there. Charles Omenihu, I'm not sure if it's really going to be coming off the edge or more so a 3-4 D end, because it seemed like a lot of the times where he was winning was more so in the kind of that 3 tech over the guard / tackle, and that would be perfect for the 3-4, where we don't know what we're going to get into with Durante Jones and what he wants to implement. But Armstrong at this moment, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to correlate with this defensive scheme, but I'm very excited to see how it's implemented. But I'm very excited to see how that goes, just in my personal opinion. Now, this next question from the Discord. This one was from our boy Meest. What's up, Meest? I'm glad to hear from you, brother. He said, who's your favorite free agent signing and who's your least? And you can't name Amik Robertson.
okay. So my favorite free agent signing, I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna take Rachaad White. That was somebody I really wanted to get going into free agency. So that for me just makes the offense a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more secure. And again, it wasn't at a high cost, and there's still room to add there. So yeah, Rachaad White's definitely gonna be my favorite. And my least favorite free agent signing, I'm gonna have to go. I mean, I can't really say least favorite, but I'm not as excited about. I would say Van Jefferson.
Okay. Well, that's probably a cop out, man. But that's a good one. It's a good one. It's a good one. My favorite, I'll say Tim Settle, without a doubt, bringing the big boy back. He shouldn't have ever left. He's going to disrupt the middle of the field. We were looking for that nose tackle. When it was flirted that we'd be switching to 3-4 months ago with Durante Jones, my first question was, okay, well, who's gonna play nose in that regard? We didn't have anybody in the building that could really do that. And adding Tim Settle before the draft allows Deron Payne, Javon Kinlaw, Johnny Newton to really flourish in that kind of 3 tech in the 3-4 to be able to work against those guards and those tackles. And so I think adding Tim Settle was absolutely perfect. He's a disruptor in the middle of the field, and he's going to be able to clog up those run lanes for you. He is a dancing bear, quick on his feet, and that's what's really going to disrupt in the middle on those offensive linemen, because the guys that are less athletic from the waist down are typically being moved inside. And so if you're not as athletic and quick on your feet, that's where guys like Tim Settle, who are quick on their feet, win. And that's when Micah Parsons and other defensive ends get pushed on over the middle and do well because of how quick they are, being able to navigate and move around the middle of the field there. Tim Settle's an easy one, without a doubt. My least favorite is Clavon Chason, to be perfectly honest with you. Hall knows this, and I didn't like him in the draft.
I think I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I have to stay consistent with it. He didn't get double-digit sacks. It took him 5 years to get there in a career. And I understand last year that he had a fantastic year, 7.5 sacks, had 3 sacks in the playoffs. I get that. I totally do. He's coming into his own, right? But when you're talking about the law of averages, what's concerning to me is that those first 4 are going to be what kind of production you get. And obviously, it's only a 1-year deal. That it is what it is. But my mind goes to I want consistency. I want to implement a D end here that's going to be here for the new stadium. And that's what kind of drew me back a little bit. Like, is this what we're going to do at D end every year? We're going to have these interchangeable 1-year deals every single year at D end. And I get it from Adam Peters' standpoint because defensive ends, it does take a little bit of time for them to get in, unless you're a Micah Parsons where you come in with this absolute speed that's able to be disrupting right away from the edge position. But I think with Clavon Chason, I've been talking about him so much that I didn't want him that I couldn't be excited for it. I understand. I saw what I saw in the film that highlights that was produced. I'm just concerned that what we are going to possibly be getting is what was early on in his career. And of course, he's ascending, but that was in that kind of scheme, right? And that's my concern overall. Do I think that in a rotation that he's going to do poorly? No, I think that he's going to do great. It's just I have to answer the question. I hate these negative questions, Meest, but I appreciate it. But if I had to pick one, it'd be Clavon Chason, my personal opinion.
You got it.
My next question that was submitted, this one was by Arch. Non-free agency related. Thoughts on the additional renderings of the new stadium? Who wants to meet up in the mini National Mall type area? Let's go.
I love it. I am so excited. I'm not even a DC native. I'm born and raised in Jersey, but I know how much that means to the people of the area, to all the fans. Going back to the city, to the heart of the city. It's just so cool. It feels like it's not even real. It feels like a dream. You can't fast forward the time, but man, these 4 years, man. After these 4 years, I believe 2030 is when they're due to open it. I'm so fired up. I'll be there. I'll be there well before then, obviously, and I'll be taking looks at it at the progression of it. But it's gonna be a new day in DC for sure once that thing is settled and open for business. I can't wait.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. These construction projects, when, I work construction. I see the renderings that they put up on the posters outside the job site to say, this is what it's going to look like. And they always use those drawings of people walking around. They make it look absolutely beautiful. Of course they do. They always do. Stadiums are different, right? Of course I'm hyped about it. I can't wait for it. But I know what goes into it, and so it's going to be fun. I can't wait to walk through that muddy mess. If we do get the contract for it, I'm not sure if the job would be asking me to come back west to be able to do that. I'd be more than willing to do that, to be able to put my elbow grease into that stadium to be able to say I helped with it. But it's awesome. I'm happy about it. I can't wait for it, of course, and I spent a lot of time at FedEx and Northwest Stadium, and I'm ready for a new one. It's about time, and you never really had the home field advantage there, and I think it's automatically going to happen with DC at RFK. It's just the perfect place to be able to do so. And I wanted to add, my favorite free agent signing is Leo Chenal on top of Tim Settle. Leo Chenal coming out of that draft class was a pass rush specialist, somebody that really charged the quarterback and was very effective in doing it. And obviously in Kansas City, he was working next to Nick Bolton, who himself is a sledgehammer. Coming out of Missouri, he was just an absolute animal. And Leo Chenal kind of was pushed by the wayside with Kansas City. Adding him here is the perfect fit for what Durante Jones wants to do in applying pressure onto the quarterback in the offense. Leo Chanel is a lot like Frankie Louvu, is going to be running downhill and being able to get after these quarterbacks, and most importantly, being able to stop the run. That's one thing that Frankie Louvu kind of wasn't great at, and in past defense as well. A lot of bad angles, missed tackle attempts, which goes back to his Carolina days. But Leo Chanel should help stabilize the middle of that field, and hopefully him and Jordan McGee, you're adding more speed to it. And that was a fantastic signing him for $8 million per for a 3-year deal. That they knocked it out of the park, man. They've done a very good job, and I know I was arguing with everyone about Jordan Love and them saying we could build up the defense in free agency to the point where we could go best player available in the draft. And I've been making jokes saying that I'm the leader of the Jeremiah Love fan club. Now, I want to make this defense to the point where you can't do anything. And I think going with defense in the first round will be able to do that. But I'm not going to poo-poo away Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon. But like Mekhi Lemon, if you do get a wide receiver 2 and like a Brandon Iayuk, then Mekhi Lemon makes sense because he's going to operate out of the slot. He's going to work in the middle of the field. Very, very dependable there. Carnell Tate's more so your wide receiver 2, your deep threat, your more explosive athlete deep downfield, the contested catch rate. Him and Terry are going to eat together. That's just another thing. But Jordan Tyson is your number 1 overall wide receiver. The injury concerns are a concern. It's a legitimate thing. Hasn't played a full college season in his entire career. And when you're talking about a 17-game season where guys are running and hitting you like a freight train and like a bus, it is a concern. But what you see on tape is a very, very special wide receiver. And I said this to you guys in the text message chat. Adding him with Jaden Daniels would feed third world countries. I really do believe that. And I think that he's somebody that when you add here, it's going to make this offense very, very capable. And you have your number 1 wide receiver heading into the future when you don't know what's going to go on overall in that group. So overall, I think that those would be fantastic selections in itself. But I'm salivating at the thought of David Bailey, of Cassius Howell, of Arvil Reese, of Sonny Styles. I want to go defense, but I wouldn't hate if they went offense. Sorry to go on a tangent, Goody.
No, you're good. You're all good.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to Mr. Tumaza. Thank you to Deluxe. Thank you to Two-Tone. Thank you to Utah. The Colonel. Arch. Tony Franchise. Ken Johansson had a question about kicker, but then he rescinded it because everyone answered it on Twitter when he wanted to answer it for the show, which sucks. He didn't want to send us another one. Thank you to Tim Towner. Thank you to Meest. You guys are the best. I can't thank you enough. Really do appreciate all you guys and your contributions to this show. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. All right, everybody. We'll see you again very, very soon. Hopefully, we'll have some developing new stuff come down the pipeline. But as of right now, I don't see much complaining going on besides Diami Brown, which is just insane to think of. We just got to find something we don't like. We just got to find something, you know.
It has been a quiet couple of hours, couple of days, but we did well. We did well.
And trust me, I'm in that same boat. I did find something I didn't like in Clavon Chason, but it's just personally because I've been talking crap about him, about not wanting him, and we went and got him. So I get it. I totally do. I'm not innocent. I'm not innocent.
He's gonna have double-digit sacks this season. You watch.
But it is hysterical how we always have to find something.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I was fired up when I heard Diami was back. I was like, no way. I was like, let's go. Because that playoff run, man, the way he was, come on, let's go.
It's so funny because I had tweeted out like a couple hours before saying that Diami Brown should be selected, and everyone was arguing with me saying that it's stupid. He didn't do anything his first 3 years, and I was like, I mean, I get that, but like, he's explosive. He's young. Why wouldn't you bring him on? So it's just crazy that right after that we went and got Diami. So it's just what a fun day it's been. All right, everybody. We'll catch you again very soon. Thank you, Goody. You're the man for helping out and joining us. You're now in the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, you can find us there. Just let me know, DM me, and I'll send you the link. All right, everybody.
Awesome.
We'll catch you next week. I'm Kyle.
Goody.
And we'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.